Welcome everyone to the This is New Zealand webinar. Thank you very much for your time in attending this evening's webinar. My name is Bore Chum. I'm a Managing Director of Migration Associates. I'm also a Licensed Immigration Advisor. I'm speaking to you all the way from New Zealand, and we will be shortly showing the recording that we've got for you for the webinar. Just a few housekeeping things. The webinar will actually be sent to you. A recording of the webinar will be sent to you after the webinar by email, so you will have a copy of the webinar. In that email, you also get some useful links that we will discuss in the presentation itself. Okay, now, during the webinar and the recording of that webinar, feel free to ask questions online, and myself and my colleague in London will be able to answer your questions. In terms of Migration Associates, we have an office in Guildford in the UK and also one here in Christchurch, New Zealand. We're very busy at the minute with some of the candidates that New Zealand Skills in Demand are helping getting jobs, so that's fantastic. But the most important thing today is for you to understand what life is like in New Zealand as best we can, and for you to have your questions answered. So I'll just introduce my colleague, Rachel Beattie from New Zealand Skills in Demand, and she is over in London. So we'll try to get Rachel online now.
Cool. Oh, thanks, Bore. So yes, I'm Rachel Beattie from New Zealand Skills in Demand. I'm the candidate manager who's based here in London. Judging from the twang, I'm obviously from New Zealand originally, but I've made the move over to very cold London at the moment. But what Skills in Demand do, we help with your job search, and quite similar to Bore, really, we've been super busy. This past month, we've set up, 10 interviews for various candidates. So, there is a lot of demand out in New Zealand, and we can certainly help. But just a bit more sort of housekeeping, I guess, because we have pre-recorded the webinar, it's good to have sort of the most up-to-date internet connection and use the internet provider possible. So Chrome is always a good browser to use. Also, if you're downloading anything in the background or looking at anything else, maybe just click out of it while you're watching the webinar, because that should help speed things up as well. And also, when we did the recording, we did notice a few sound issues. So, we are aware of it. We will be working to rectify that. But if you're having trouble hearing anything or you've got any questions, then please do just, put your questions in the chat, and we will do our best to answer it for you. But I think what we'll do now is we'll start the presentation for you. And yeah, as I said, please just send through all your questions. Hi everyone, welcome to the This is New Zealand webinar. Thank you very much for listening in. My name's Rachel Beattie and I'm the Candidate Manager for New Zealand Skills in Demand, and I am Kiwi, but I'm based here in London. And joining me as well is my colleague Bore Chum, who is the Managing Director for Migration Associates, and he is based out in Christchurch, New Zealand. And today what we're going to be doing is just talking to you about life in New Zealand and the New Zealand lifestyle. We do have a bit of a schedule that we're going to work to. So firstly, we'll be giving you an overview of New Zealand, which will take around 30 minutes. Then I'll be speaking to you about how to get a job in New Zealand, which will take around 10 minutes. Next up, Bore will be speaking to you about the very important New Zealand immigration process. And then what we'll do is we'll follow up with a Q&A session, so you can ask any questions that you've got about the process, and we'll give around sort of 5 to 10 minutes for that. Okay, but we'll get started with the presentation. So New Zealand in numbers. Now, depending on where you come from, population-wise, you might be heading to small little old New Zealand. Our population is 4.7 million, which isn't isn't very big. It's very nice, lots of space. About 1/3 of the population live in Auckland, so that's by far our biggest city in New Zealand. And we have quite a good mix of cultures out in New Zealand. So a bit of a breakdown for you. Around 71% of our population is European. And then we have around 14% of Indigenous Māori, around 11% of Asian. So for us, that's Chinese, Japanese, different cultures like that. And then around 7% is non-Māori or Pacific Islanders. So as you can see there, like, New Zealand is quite a multicultural country. We're very welcoming of new people coming to our country. It's nice. You get to experience a lot of different cultures in your day-to-day life out in New Zealand as well. So for weather, I know weather's quite a big part when you're looking at, moving to a different country. New Zealand has mild temperatures, moderately high rainfall, and many hours of sunshine throughout most of the country. New Zealand's climate is dominated by two main geographical features, so that is the mountains and the sea. We are a little bit back to front in the fact that January and February are the warmest months, and then July is our coldest month of the year. Summer, I know that they've been having an amazing summer. The average maximum temperature ranges between 20 to 30 degrees, but in winter it can be a little bit cooler, between 10 and 15 degrees. So Auckland, our biggest city, has quite a warm, temperate climate. It's quite hot and humid, and there are mild and damp winters. It is the warmest main centre of New Zealand, and it is also one of the sunniest, with an average of 2003 sunshine hours per year. Christchurch, where Bore is based, has a more dry, temperate climate, with an average daily maximum air temperature of around 22 degrees in the summer months, and then around 11 degrees during winter. In winter, it is common for the temperatures to fall below 0 degrees at night. It is, Christchurch can put on a good frost in the morning. But looking at this table here, it does, I think, give you a good idea of, the average rainfall compared to the sunshine hours. So as an example, Auckland has quite a lot of rainfall. It's almost quite sort of tropical. You get a lot of rain, but then, you get a lot of sunshine hours as well, which sort of, equals it all out.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everyone. My name is Bore Chum, and the next slide and topic we will be talking about is the New Zealand housing. As you can see, our houses are very unique when compared to the house that you, or the housing systems that you may have in your own countries. And housing plays a big part in the change in lifestyle. You will see that there is the indoor-outdoor flow with picnic tables and barbecues outside, really catering for that outdoor living that New Zealand offers. We would encourage all migrants to firstly look at renting a home when they first arrive in New Zealand. Most rental properties are unfurnished. Obviously, you have the carpets and the curtains, which are the normal chattels. Rent is normally paid weekly, and 4 weeks bond is to be paid. So it's really important that you do go to New Zealand with some money saved to ensure that you can afford these setup costs. Unlike the UK, the landlord in New Zealand pays the rates, and that's included in the rental price. And in some areas in New Zealand, the tenant does not pay for water usage. Home contents insurance to protect you against theft and fire is also recommended. And some popular websites that you should jot down is trademe.co.nz/property and also realestate.co.nz. And these are useful websites to look at what type of rental properties are available for the city that you're looking to immigrate to. Some of the websites give you a bit of a pictorial look at the house, and that will give you a real good understanding of the size and characteristics of the house. And most importantly, it will give you the key details such as how many bedrooms there are and the cost on a weekly basis. Average weekly rentals will depend on where you live. Very similar to where you're living, you'll see that the highly densely populated cities would command a higher rent, such as Auckland, whereas the lower populated cities such as Invercargill, you'll find rent at a cheaper price. Now, these are average costs, and therefore do go back to those websites I gave to you before to find out the market rentals in your city that you're looking to go to. These are weekly costs in New Zealand dollars, and therefore you need to factor the cost of this when compared to obviously what you're going to be earning in terms of what you will have left over. So you would expect to get a higher wage in Auckland, obviously, given the opportunities there in employment when compared to somewhere like Invercargill or Dunedin. So do your research, understand where you're looking to rent, understand the key characteristics such as how many bedrooms there are, and also understand the cost of that. And market rent will always fluctuate during the year. For instance, in Christchurch, there's an abundance of supply, and therefore the demand has decreased, and therefore the cost of rentals has become a lot more cheaper than what it has been previously. Buying a home in New Zealand is relatively easy, and you would probably look to purchase a house once you are settled and you've got permanent residency and you want to live in New Zealand. The key feature of a house in New Zealand is most of them are standalone and built of wood. Most of the older houses do not have central heating or double glazing. However, the newer houses have these features included. The property features in the Wednesday and Saturday papers will detail the houses for sale. So that's one good way to look for houses that you want to look to purchase. And open homes in the weekends and on Wednesdays are a great opportunity for you to look through the house and decide if it is the house for you. In terms of conditions and contracts, we would always advise you to go get independent legal advice to ensure that your contract of purchase of the house has the conditions that you would normally expect a contract to have, such as limb and title search from a solicitor, subject to finance, and also, most importantly, the building inspection of that house. Unlike some countries, there are no chains. So if you agree with the vendor, you could have the keys to the house within 2 to 4 weeks. So it does happen very quickly. And a common way of purchasing a house or selling a house is via auction, okay? And that requires you to have an unconditional deal, have finance in place, and you'll be bidding against other purchasers to purchase that house. So it is a very unique way of buying and selling a house. Some will say very uncomfortable because you don't know what the asking price is, but speak to a real estate agent who will give you an indication of the likelihood of the price range in which they expect that house to be sold. Median house prices you would expect would be a lot higher in the more populated cities, such as Brent that we discussed previously. You'll see that Auckland's median house price is over $850,000, and you would expect that given the most populated city. Just bear in mind, these are median house prices, so it's not uncommon for a house in Auckland to be over worth $1 million New Zealand dollars. Whereas if you go down to the central South Island, you'll see Christchurch median is at $439,000. So again, understand where you're looking to live, understand your budget, understand cost of living and the types of houses available for the region where you want to look at. Once you've got a job offer, you'll know exactly what disposable income you have, and you also need to ensure that you can get finance and have the deposit to purchase a house in New Zealand.
Cool, thanks, Bore. So healthcare in New Zealand. I'll just go to this next slide. So New Zealand public health system does provide free public hospital treatments, healthcare during pregnancy and childbirth, and it also does subsidise on GP visits and prescription medicines. There are 40 public hospitals throughout New Zealand, and we also have a really great agency, I suppose you could call them, called the Accident Compensation Corporation, or for short we call them ACC. And basically part of your salary pays ACC levies, so that if you ever have an accident, regardless of whether it's at work or maybe out in the weekend, you're playing a game of rugby and you injure yourself, the ACC will provide compensation based on your income up to 80%. So we don't really have like a suing culture in New Zealand or anything like that, because, you know, if you injure yourself or have an accident, you just claim from ACC. So, I mean, a lot of Kiwis do also elect to have private health insurance as well. You know, if you're wanting to maybe get more immediate treatment for non-urgent conditions, it is available. There are a wide range of insurance policies with different premiums. You are, like, even if you do hold private healthcare, you are still entitled to free public health services for accident and emergency care. So, you know, it's really up to you what you decide to do. Healthfunds.org.nz for information on providers is a really good website to have a look and, you know, just get a bit more information. So a basic cost of healthcare. Now, the great thing about, I know the thing here in the UK is that you're very restricted to like your postcode and where you live and who you can visit, like what GP or dentist. But in New Zealand, you don't have that. You know, you can, if you want to drive an hour to go see your doctor, you know, you're more than welcome to. But, you know, being in a bigger city, you know, it might be a little bit more expensive than a smaller city. But GP visits, as an example, if you've got children under the years of 6, then, you know, a lot of doctors won't charge. If you're between, you know, 17 and 44 years of age, you're looking at around $15, $16 through to $65. And for prescriptions, depending on how old you are, you know, it might be free, or, you know, you might be spending at least $15. The dentist in New Zealand can be a bit more expensive. I know my colleague who was up in Auckland would sort of look at paying around $90 for a standard checkup. I would probably pay a little bit less back home where I'm from. So I would recommend, you know, definitely getting a bit of a checkup before maybe you head out. Might work out to be a bit, you know, a bit cheaper, and you just sort of know that everything's okay before you fly as well.
The education system in New Zealand is well renowned for the positive results children get, both at primary school and secondary school. And in terms of tertiary education, we have a number of universities and also higher school learning institutes that are also well regarded. So, you know, I think the education system, in my view, having got two young children, both aged 7 and 5, is very accessible. And because of our population, there is that focus on ensuring that the needs of your child and the education that they receive is paramount. Schooling is compulsory from the ages 6 to 16. However, most people have their children start on their 5th birthday. We have education that is provided by the government, which is the state schooling system, and that runs from years 1 to 13, and that's NCEA, which is the curriculum. Okay, we have public education, which is paid for by the state, and we also have private education, which is paid for by the families and the individuals. So, from my opinion, in terms of the people that I went to school with, and the people that, you know, I obviously socialize with, you know, the difference is the cost. And I think the standard of education, both state and private, is at a very high level. So it's really your decision on whether or not you send them to public schooling or private schooling, as it probably is in your country that you live in. In New Zealand, we do have certain zoning for regions in the city. So if you live in a particular area, you will have a right to register your child in the school that you're looking to send your children to. So that zoning may affect the cost of housing. And again, as alluded to in the slides before, some certain areas may mean that house pricing may be a little bit more than the average cost that I had indicated in my previous slide. So do some research. I think once you're in New Zealand and you're renting initially, you'll get an idea of how the zoning system works, etc. Our term dates run from the end of January to mid-April. That's term 1. Term 2 is late April to the beginning of July. Term 3 is mid-July to mid-September. And the challenging and tiring term, which is term 4 for the kids, is from mid-October to mid-December. We generally have a break for the kids from mid-December all the way through to the end of January or early February. And at that point of time, most New Zealand families are going on holiday and enjoying a bit of sunshine and some relaxation. You'll find that a lot of employers would expect you to take your annual leave during the Christmas period, and that works quite well because you get to spend that with your children. Primary school runs from year 1 to year 6, and intermediate school runs from year 7 to 8. High school is from year 9 to year 13. You'll find that in rural areas, you'll see that all 3 will be included in a school, whereas when you move into the cities, you may only have a school that's primary as such, or primary and intermediate. So, it really does depend on your locality and where you're sending your kids to school in terms of the makeup of that school. We do have a curriculum in New Zealand, and that is NCEA Level 2, which is equivalent to, if you're living in the UK, GCSEs, grades A to C, and we have NCEA Level 3, which is equivalent to A levels in the UK. As alluded to before, some schools in rural areas will combine all 3 in one location. We have 8 universities and 20 polytechnics and institutes of technology. Once you're a permanent resident, the government will subsidise your education and tertiary education, and also student loans will be available. Because of our population in New Zealand, I find that access to university and tertiary education is relatively easy in terms of qualification requirements. Obviously, if you're looking for medicine, there's a high threshold that you need to meet in terms of your marks. But generally, because of the population, you'll find that not only is tertiary education accessible, but it is very affordable when compared to other countries. So, for instance, a student loan for the first full year full-time of an arts degree is around 3,000 New Zealand dollars when compared to 2,000 New Zealand dollars for a medical degree. So if you do those sums and compare them with your university at your school, you'll see that New Zealand has a very competitive cost of education, and I would argue an education system in tertiary education which is very accessible. Some useful websites for you to look at in terms of childcare and also parental leave, etc. are these 3 websites. Those. Just bear in mind you will be sent this link to this recording, and you can go down if you missed them. Right.
So driving in New Zealand is quite, we're quite a car-heavy nation. We do rely very heavily on our cars. So the minimum age to apply for your driver's license is 16 years. And there are 3 stages of getting your license out in New Zealand. So you've got your learners, which is basically when you sit your theory test. And then your restricted license, so that's when you do like a practical test and you're able to drive supervised. I think it's for around 12 months. And then you have your second practical test, and then that's when you go for your full license, and then you're able to drive unsupervised, do your own thing. It's really great when you get that independence. But if you are coming from overseas and you hold a current and valid overseas driver's license, then you can drive for a period of 12 months from the date that you arrive into New Zealand. So you've got the first 12 months to just drive on your driver's license, and then once you've been in the country for 12 months, that's when you would then need to look at swapping over to a New Zealand driver's license. And to be able to swap over to a New Zealand driver's license is quite easy. All that's needed is your current and valid driver's license. You need to fill out an application form. You may need to do an eye test, and then there is also a fee that you need to pay, which is around $157. So further driving tests are required depending on where your license is issued. So
Rachel?
cost of living,
I'll jump in here, Rachel, in terms of the cost of living.
Yeah, sure.
A really important aspect of your move to New Zealand, and one that everyone wants to know a lot about. It can be very difficult when you look at, what the cost of living is like in New Zealand, given the amount of information about on the internet and forums, etc. It's very hard to just convert foreign currency into New Zealand dollars and try to figure it out that way. And, with all the spreadsheets in the world, unfortunately, one of the best things to do is actually understand what you could be paid in New Zealand and the cost of what you're required to pay for such items such as electricity, rent, etc. So, having friends or family and asking them questions who are living in New Zealand is a good way to figure that one out. But certainly it's very difficult to figure this one out from overseas. I think it's really important when compared to where you're living that some things will be a little bit more expensive in New Zealand due to the lack of consumer power and distance. So what we mean by that is we're a country in the South Pacific, so it's going to cost more for things and goods and whatnot to be sent to New Zealand, and that would obviously be factored in. So the best thing to do, I think, when you're looking at the cost of living and what items are expensive, is have a look at certain websites in terms of purchasing furniture and electrical goods to understand how they compare against what it costs in your own country. We have goods and service tax, which is equivalent in the UK to VAT. It's 15% on all goods. And the positive thing, whilst we talked about some things being more expensive, our tax rates on personal income are less than the OECD average, which is a very positive thing for you. Just to give you some examples, the general costs, petrol is around $2.20 per litre as at January of this year. That can fluctuate depending on the cost of oil, etc. A postage stamp to the UK, for instance, is $2.20. A flat white, very renowned for and absolutely delicious in New Zealand, is around the $5 mark. As an example of what might be expensive, washing machines. So if I give an example, front loaders can be anywhere up to from 800 to 3,000 New Zealand dollars, and top loaders are around 500 to 1,600 New Zealand dollars. So depending on where you live, that may be a lot more expensive than you're used to. Conversely, televisions are a lot cheaper in New Zealand, I think, when compared to other countries. And you'll find that a 40-inch TV will cost you anywhere between $600 to $1,000, depending on the make of the television. So it's bittersweet in terms of some goods, electrical goods, services, whatever, a little bit more expensive. Some may be cheaper. We just encourage you to speak to friends and family, get some tips, and also do some research on the internet and look at some of the big cities and the big shops that sell goods so that you can actually compare that to the cost in your own country. We try to do a grocery comparison here. Our shopping basket that we have shopped for have some of the key essentials. So things like milk, bread, eggs, butter, tea bags, pasta, cooking oil, apples, potatoes, lamb chops because we're in New Zealand, some laundry powder, some potato chips, and some wine. So we went shopping at a grocery or shopping chain called Countdown in New Zealand. So if you go to www.countdown.co.nz, you will be taken to the website and you can look at the costs of groceries there, and you'll see in the column there we've got the cost there when compared to countries such as the UK, South Africa and Canada. And you'll see there that when you convert them into New Zealand dollars, there is much of a muchness. Some will be a little bit more expensive in terms of the goods that you're looking to buy, but relatively very similar, albeit, give or take, maybe $50 in most cases. So it really does depend what you shop for. There are 3 or 4 different supermarket chains in New Zealand when compared to, and each have different costs for certain grocery items. You'll also find that New Zealanders like to shop for their fruit and vegetables at fruit and vegetable shops where the prices are a lot cheaper. The fruit and vegetables are very seasonal, so in the summertime you'll see strawberries a little bit cheaper when there's a lot of them, but when just before the season they're a bit more expensive. So that's something that we've certainly got used to, the seasonal nature of fruit and vegetables. And also meat, you can shop and get better deals at butcheries, etc. So it really does depend on where you shop. And the good thing is that you'll have a bit more time to shop because of that lifestyle that you get in New Zealand. So certainly some savings to be made, but hopefully this gives you a bit of indication on some of the costs when compared to your country.
Thanks, Bore. So why move? Well, New Zealand's a great place, and we've got a few stats for you about, I guess, why New Zealand's so fantastic. So in the 2017 Mercer Quality of Life Survey, Auckland was ranked number 3, and that was based on 39 factors including housing, recreation, education, and political environment, which I know for a lot of people currently is, really important to them. In the 2017 Mercer Cost of Living Survey, Auckland went number 61, where the most expensive city is ranked number 1. And just to give you, I guess, a bit of a guideline, Sydney's around number 24, Wellington was number 86, and then London, where I'm based at the moment, is number 29. But another also great thing, and I think one that's also really important as well, in the 2017 Transparency International Survey, New Zealand was rated joint number 1 with Denmark for the least corrupt country in the world. So a lot of good reasons there why New Zealand should be a place that you move to. Another few reasons as well. I'll quickly go through some of them. Economy and jobs. There's been a recent job growth. It's expected to continue. There are 72,000 more people employed now than there was a year ago, and an additional 153,000 people are forecast to be in work by mid-2019. Bore touched on it as well. The education system's really great in New Zealand. 15-year-olds are scoring ahead of those in the UK in reading and maths. Population, I talked about it at the start. Our population is quite small compared to the 63, 64 million in the UK, and only 5% of our population is humans. So, a lot of space, space to just get out and enjoy the lifestyle, and you're not sort of bumping into people all the time. And I guess just innovation as well. We were the first country in the world to give women the right to vote. We've had women in, high positions of power. And we're just, I think, a very forward-thinking country, which is, another great reason why you should move out there.
Thanks, Rach. I only echo Rachel's comments there. Just to give you a quick understanding, I mean, we lived in the UK for 10 years. We are Kiwis, and we've come back to New Zealand. We've lived here 2 years now, and I've got a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And the whole concept of lifestyle is we can talk about what is the lifestyle, but once you live the lifestyle, you really understand that. And the lifestyle can be anything from having a bit of space to enjoying the outdoors, to enjoying your kids, knowing that your kids are getting a great education and are safe, knowing that the social political environment is safe and stable, so that the economy can grow, and that that there is an employment, which is really important for you and as a family. So we enjoyed our time in the UK, but I can say that I can put my hand on my heart and say that the move back to New Zealand has been the best thing that we've done for our family, because truly our lifestyle is a lot better than what it ever was as a family unit in the UK. And I think what's really exciting is the infrastructure, the construction, and the booming economy that New Zealand has when compared to the rest of the world. So it's a really good time to be looking for work, and we certainly wouldn't be doing what we're doing in this presentation because New Zealand is crying out for skilled migrants. So it is true, no matter where you're living in New Zealand, you are approximately 15 minutes from somewhere beautiful. Okay. And Roger Stone, who was a previous client of ours, and he and his family moved over to New Zealand in July of 2002. He's now purchased a piece of land and built his own house. He was from the UK, and he states that we are about 30 minutes drive from the beach and just over an hour from the ski and mountains. So, New Zealand has this work hard, play hard mentality because we have the landscape and the opportunities to have that work-life balance and enjoy the outdoors, and that will extend to spending some really quality time with you and your family and having that lifestyle. So, this slide is to give you a really good snapshot of what it's like in that Christmas period, that period that the kids are on school holidays and you're away from work, hopefully having a technology detox, no emails, etc. You probably won't own a boat soon, but you probably know someone that owns a boat, so you'll definitely want to get on with them, and you'll be looking to enjoy that outdoor lifestyle in the Batch, which is a holiday home, and also the outdoor dining in terms of the barbecue. And for me, these photos remind me of what it's like in the summertime, especially even this summer. We've had fantastic weather, and for me, I look at it and it just looks relaxing, enjoyable, and that is the New Zealand lifestyle. So once you get here and you settle, and just bear in mind it might take you 1 or 2 years to settle, this is the sort of lifestyle you'll be looking to achieve for you and your family. And hence why I moved to New Zealand, is for that better Kiwi lifestyle.
Great, thanks, Bore. So I'll be speaking to you now about how do I find work in New Zealand, and I guess what's involved in the process, and how Skills in Demand may be able to help with your job search. So just a little bit about Skills in Demand. So we are a New Zealand-based company, but we also are based here in the UK. So my colleague Susanna Dyson and myself, we're here in London. We're both Kiwis, and we basically help you find work in New Zealand. We do work with large and reputable and very well-established New Zealand companies. And in the last sort of 6 years since we've been set up, we've helped well over 500 candidates to get work out in New Zealand. And we were mainly set up, after the February earthquake happened, and there was that, huge demand for skilled construction workers. That's how, Skills in Demand came to be. So, I mean, Christchurch development is sort of a big part of why we do. As I said, this is why Skills in Demand was set up, because of the earthquake and the damage that was caused. I mean, with the earthquake and the damage, it's a $40 billion project. It is likely to take at least 10 to 15 years to fix. 6 years on from the major quake, and we're kind of only really halfway through the rebuild. There is still a lot to be done. There are thousands more skilled tradespeople required, just because we can't, us Kiwis, we just can't keep up with demand as it is. The central city is to be largely redeveloped and rebuilt. There have been a lot of sort of key anchor projects and precincts going on. I know that they're sort of wanting to, rebuild the city and give it a great new vibe and attract a lot more people into this, the city centre. And, as well as it being sort of commercial, I mean, domestic, there were a lot of residential houses that were damaged in the earthquake as well. So they're wanting to build, thousands of new homes in the next 5 years as well. And there has also been massive repairs, and I know it's ongoing as well, to horizontal infrastructure. So, all the drains, pipe work, all the roading, that all needs to be repaired as well. So it's quite a big job that they've got ahead of them. In saying that, though, I mean, it's not all in not all in Christchurch. I mean, there is a lot of work going on in Auckland and Tauranga in particular, just because they have such a huge growing population. Residential and commercial building consents have reached their highest annual total in over a decade. The growth in residential activity in Auckland is particularly encouraging, as it forecasts that in 2017, more homes had been built than ever before, which is just, for the biggest city in New Zealand, that's just incredible. I know for Tauranga in 2017, they just had, the amount of building consents that they had, it was just incredible. From October to December, the residential and commercial building consents totaled 541 and were worth, close to $230 million, which, for Tauranga's economy, it's incredible. So there's so much work that needs to be done out in New Zealand, and it's not just purely Christchurch. So what you're probably thinking is, what do I need to do to get a job? So for us to be able to help, we need an up-to-date CV from you. And if you need a New Zealand CV template, we can certainly send a copy of this out to you. That's no problem. We also like to get a bit of background information, so we get you to complete a CBD, and that basically just gives us an idea of who's travelling, when are your, where do you want to go, what are your time frames and plans, and that, just as much information as possible. We also ask for written references from former employees, and clients and their contact details, and we also do verbal references as well. We also get you to send through electronic copies of all your qualifications, and we also get a Skype username from you, because instead of having to fly out to New Zealand, if we can help with your job search, then we just set you up with a Skype interview. And probably the most, important part of the process, and this is where it's great that Skills in Demand have a good working relationship with Migration Associates, is understanding and starting the visa process. You need to understand what your visa options are, and that's what Bore will touch on in the next few slides. So the Skills in Demand that are, across New Zealand, that Skills in Demand as a company can help find work for, are listed here on the slide. So we are very construction focused. So we can help, carpenters, bricklayers, electricians if you've got your New Zealand registration, ceiling fixers, all sorts of roles. If you're a little bit outside of these roles, feel free to get in touch, because it might be something we can still help with. Otherwise, if we can't help, then I do recommend having a look on Seek.co.nz and also trademe.co.nz. they're our two main job hunting websites out in New Zealand. A lot of Kiwis use them when they're hunting for roles. So I would definitely recommend having a look on those websites if we can't help with your job search. So the process about, heading out to New Zealand and getting a job, learn about New Zealand, decide that this is what you're committed to doing. And I guess, if you're listening into this webinar, congratulations, you've taken the first step. Talk to people as much as you can about the process and, find out what they did and what they thought. And overcome any potential issues. It's not just as easy as sort of packing up and making the move. Do you have a house to sell or rent out? Do you have a business to close down? Do your young children know about the move and are they happy with it? Just make sure that everyone's sort of aware of what your plans are and that everything's going to be all okay. Work out when you want to arrive in New Zealand, because most Kiwi employers, once you've had a job offer, they like you to be out in New Zealand within 3 months. So obviously you sort of want to work to those time frames and have a good idea of when you want to arrive. Another thing that makes my life easier is gathering all your documents that we need and sending them through as quickly as possible. Even if you're still a couple of months out from making the move, the sooner we've got your documents, we can just keep them aside and then they're good to go when we set you up with your interview. And also get your working holiday visa or engage with Bore and his team at Migration Associates. If you may require a permanent job offer to apply for a work visa. So it's good to be talking to us about the job side and then also dealing with Migration Associates at the same time. And we do have some partners as well that we work with, so we can send you their details too. So they can help with, foreign exchange and sending your money over to New Zealand, and also shipping. And, if you've got a house, household items that you want to send, they can help you with that as well. And then I guess, after all of that's been done and you've got your job offer and you've got your visa, the best part, I think, is being able to book your tickets and get on the plane to a better lifestyle and opportunity out in New Zealand.
Thanks, Rachel. It sounds very simple, the process, but I can tell you now that that whilst the lifestyle here in New Zealand is available and here waiting for you, there is a lot of work on your end. And I think the most important thing is learning about New Zealand. It is going to be the biggest decision that you make for you and your family. And I think attending this webinar is that first step. We have people who have attended our webinars and our physical seminars who, within a year or even some cases 2 to 3 years end up making the move. So don't be too worried if, your timeframes are longer than, say within 6 months. It's important that you're doing what you're doing and doing as much research about the process. Feel free to ask any questions to Rachel and her team about the job search process. I can reiterate that our economy is booming at the minute. Our unemployment rate is less than 5%. And if you're not in occupations in construction, I can assure you that most of your skills will be in demand because of the flow-on effects you have in the economy in terms of work in all sectors. So it's a really, really good time to be looking at getting a job. And that leads into a really important part of this presentation, and that's to talk about the New Zealand immigration process. And it is important that you do have a job offer, because in most cases that job offer is the vehicle for you to getting a work visa, and if you wanted residency, a residency visa for you and your family to live and work in New Zealand. It's important that I do discuss the context of New Zealand immigration. We've had the last couple of years probably the highest net immigration figures that we've had for a long period of time in New Zealand. That means that there's more people staying in New Zealand than leaving New Zealand. Labour, our government, have been voted in at the end of the year, and one of the key election pledges was to drop the number of people entering New Zealand. Okay, and one way to do that is obviously to tighten the regulations and policy. Okay, so right from the outset, it's very important to understand your eligibility and whether or not you and your family can make the move to New Zealand. Because once you've established that New Zealand is where you want to be, the next step is to understanding whether or not you can actually make this dream become a reality. Just a little introduction on Migration Associates. We are based in the UK and in New Zealand. We have 4 licensed advisors giving immigration advice, basically in terms of eligibility and also helping with the visa process itself. We have assisted in our time over 2,000 families and individuals to live and work in New Zealand. We are specialists in New Zealand immigration because that's all we specialise in. And we have a strategic relationship with New Zealand Skills and Demand. It is job-led immigration, which means that you do need that job offer. And we're proud that over the years and our efforts to provide a good service that we were made finalists for the 2017 Immigration Advisor of the Year. So we do take a lot of pride in the work that we do and the assistance that we provide to our clients. And it's very nice to know that we've been recognised in New Zealand for that hard work and diligence that we've provided to our clients over the years that we've been operating. So something that we're very, very proud of. It all starts with the New Zealand visa evaluation, and this really determines your eligibility. So the first step is to complete our online visa evaluation form. Okay, and we will look to contact you and provide you with a New Zealand work visa evaluation and or an evaluation under the skill category. Like I said, it's very important to understand your visa eligibility, and your visa eligibility is dependent on your personal circumstances. Now, there are a lot of forums out there. There's a lot of information online. Just because Joe Bloggs next door to you has got his visa in 2 months doesn't mean that you'll get your visa in 2 months. It really is a case-by-case basis that visas are granted by Immigration New Zealand, and it's very hard to apply your circumstances to people on forums, etc. So it's very important you understand your visa eligibility given your own personal circumstances. In the evaluation, we'll confirm what visa you and your family can apply for. We'll confirm the cost and the timeframes. And for those of you, who've got occupations that New Zealand Skills and Demand can assist with, we will provide an immigration report to New Zealand Skills and Demand, just confirming your eligibility for a visa. That report is used by New Zealand Skills and Demand to give confidence with their clients that they're working with that you can indeed meet the visa criteria. I'm going to go through the visa types very quickly and just give a quick overview. Okay, and I'll start with the skilled migrant category. This is the category that you and your family can get residency. It's a very good category visa to get in terms of having the right to permanently live in New Zealand and at some later point qualify for New Zealand citizenship and then hold a New Zealand passport date. This visa category has been the subject of a lot of change in the last 12 months on the basis of what I discussed previously. When immigration policy gets tighter, the policy changes, and therefore it's important that you understand that the government are making it more difficult to get a visa on the basis of them looking to decrease numbers of those who enter New Zealand. Under the skilled migrant category, it's points-based. You get points for qualifications and work experience and other other categories. So we will go through that with your evaluation in detail, what points that you can claim. In most cases, it is dependent on a skilled offer of employment. The visa is available for those aged between 20 and 55. You need to meet the character and medical requirements. In order to meet the point score, you need to meet 160 points. This was previously 140. So as you can see, it has risen. And the selection criteria to obtain an invitation to apply is done on a weekly basis. Okay, a fortnightly basis. We'd only lodge your expression of interest, which if we thought you would get selected. Okay, there was a cost to lodging your expression of interest. and we certainly wouldn't be incurring any cost to you if we didn't think that you would get invited to apply having submitted your EOI. The process, you're looking probably anywhere between 2 and 6 months, okay? And as alluded to before, things have changed. You're probably asking the question, if it takes 2 to 6 months, how are you going to get to New Zealand quickly to start work? What we would do in that case is apply for a temporary work visa for you to enter New Zealand whilst the skilled migrant category working alongside the work visa process. So again, as part of that evaluation, we'll detail and educate you on the process so that you understand timeframes and the strategies that we would employ to ensure that you got to New Zealand and you were applying for the right visas. Another way to get residency is through the work to residence visa category under the accredited employer talent policy, which is one of the most common ones. You need an offer of employment for 2 years or more. The employer must be accredited. So Immigration New Zealand have a list of accredited employers, and if they are accredited and you meet certain requirements, you can apply for a work visa. You must be earning 55k or more based on a 40-hour week, meet the health and character requirements, and once you've worked for that accredited employer for 24 months, you can then apply for residency. So there is a pathway to residency there, and it's a different pathway than the skilled migrant category visa that I discussed previously, okay? This temporary work visa that you'll get for 30 months will be approved within 15 working days. So just to be clear, once you've worked under that temporary visa for that accredited employer, after working for 24 months, you'll be able to then apply for residency. As discussed previously, in order to get to New Zealand quickly to appease your employer who is desperate for you to start, we would apply for a work visa under the Essential Skills Work Visa policy. You need an offer of employment from a New Zealand employer. You must have qualifications and work experience related to the role. There must be no New Zealand citizens available. That's a test. Again, you have to meet the health and character requirements. The validity of your work visa would depend on your skill level and occupation and location. So generally, they're either 1, 3, or 5 years work visa, and would go through to explain what you're eligible for. Now, if you're working for an employer A in New Zealand and you get a job offer with employer B, you can vary the conditions of your work visa to allow you to work for employer B. So I guess I'm not saying, what I want to confirm with you is that you can move around on an essential skills work visa once you arrive in New Zealand. You're not, you're not required to work for that employer forever. Okay, so if you do get another job, you can vary the conditions if approved by Immigration New Zealand. This work visa is approved within 20 working days. So again, very quickly. So like Rachel said, you are really expected to be in New Zealand once you've got a job within 2 to 3 months. So the process can go through relatively quickly. For those of you who are under 31, certain countries have a working holiday visa scheme. I've just given you the example of a British citizen under the age of 31. He or she will be eligible to apply for a working visa with a duration of 23 months to 12 months. During that stay, the purpose is to holiday. Work can only be done for 12 months on a fixed term contract during the working holiday visa. Once you are in New Zealand on that working holiday visa, you can convert into a work visa or residency once you're in New Zealand. So you'll find that a lot of people use a working holiday visa as a stepping stone to come to New Zealand with the right to work, obtain work, convert into a work visa, and at a later stage, convert into residency. Okay. With the working holiday visa, you can work in any occupation and you can travel the breadth of New Zealand. And you'll find that it's approved within 2 to 5 working days. So it's a very good work visa to be applying for if you're under the age of 31 and your country has a scheme with New Zealand. And like I said there, it is a means to convert into other more permanent visas for you to live and work in New Zealand permanently. So a really good visa that we would recommend if this applies to you. So it's really important to have an immigration strategy, understand how the visas can work together. and we can help with that immigration strategy. And that's just to give you forward planning, understand the costs, understand what the timeframes are, understand what the end goals are for you and your family. Okay, that is the biggest move that you're looking to make. We'll provide advice on what documents you need. We will educate you on the timeframes and the cost. Like I said, you could be applying for the residency and work visa at the same time. So the strategy will look at how we can work within the policy to ensure we apply for the right visas at the right time to achieve your end goals. In terms of medicals, police certificates and occupational registration, as mentioned previously, you need to meet the health and character requirements. So you will need to obtain a medical. Okay, so we would always advise people to get a general checkup before making the move. You'd only apply for a medical once you've got a job offer. They're only valid for 3 months before your visa application. The medical must be obtained by a panel of doctors close to you in your own country, and there is a list of panel doctors in your country, and you'll need to book that medical as soon as you have a job offer. You'll need to get a medical certificate and also chest X-ray. Okay. In terms of the police certificates, you must be of good character, and police certificates are obtainable all around the world. Those police certificates are valid for 6 months, and you'll need to submit that in your applications. All previous criminal convictions, whether or not they were done 10, 15, 5 years ago, must be disclosed. Failure to disclose these criminal convictions could lead to visa refusal. So it's really, I can't emphasize the need to disclose everything so that we understand what we're dealing with and so that we can obviously advise immigration of these previous criminal convictions. It's very, very difficult for you not to meet the criminal conviction, the character requirements, and therefore disclosure is the best policy. And if we think that you're not going to meet the requirements, we will let you know. In terms of occupational registration, teachers, nurses, plumbers, electricians, and gas fitters are some of the occupations which you need to obtain registration in New Zealand to work in New Zealand. If you're one of these occupations, which again we will advise you of, if you get evaluation, please bear in mind there's an extra step in the visa process which can be complex and time-consuming. So if I give you an example, if you're a nurse, it could take you 6 months to get registration. But New Zealand employers will only consider you once you've obtained the registration. So it's really important that you look into this process and get this process started, because it will delay your application, and most importantly, it will delay any interest from New Zealand employers because they need that registration in place. Start this process, and for some occupations, we can assist you with the process. Okay, so our job is to provide you with an end-to-end service. We are based in the UK. We have an office in Guildford, which is the office that I set up, and we have staff based there along with a licensed immigration advisor, and we also have an office here in New Zealand with 3 licensed immigration advisors. Okay, we are licensed to give immigration advice. Okay, so we are very regulated in terms of our knowledge of the immigration process. We are trusted and have industry recognition, as discussed before. We have been lucky to make some finals for some immigration awards. The whole purpose of the New Zealand visa evaluation is to understand your eligibility. We will not be assisting you if we don't think you can meet the criteria, and therefore, because of that rigorous screening process at the start, that leads to a high success rate. In addition to that, once we assist you, we will avoid the delays that you may commonly associate with those who do it themselves. Okay, and that assistance to you is to provide you with all advice and documentation preparation. We will liaise with Immigration New Zealand and your employer on your behalf to make sure we get everything together for your application. Our job is to avoid delays and for you to get your visa to start working in New Zealand as quickly as possible. And most importantly, for you to make the key decisions like booking flights and things like that. So the quicker you can get the visa, the better you can be prepared for this move. Like I said, we will create an immigration strategy with you. We understand and we know what the paperwork that is required by Immigration New Zealand. And because of this process and understanding, We will save you time and money and limit the stress levels. It is a stressful process, you know, packing up and moving across the world. And we want to make this as less stressful as possible. Even if we're assisting you, there will be stress levels because there'll be certain documents that we will need. And if we don't get those documents, we'll let you know, because we need to push you along to get the process started to minimise any delays, okay? And I think with the context of New Zealand immigration as it is in terms of policy and legislation, there will probably be upcoming changes in immigration and policy in 2018, given the new government. And it's important that you are abreast of all these changes if you have assistance from a licensed immigration advisor. Remember, it's the most important thing that you'll be doing for you and your family. And it's important that if any changes come about that may affect your eligibility, you need to know about these changes and how that affects you in order to plan this move to New Zealand. So pretty complex stuff. For some of you, it will be a walk in the park, but for some of you, it will be a lot different in terms of the pathway that you go through. And we're here to assist to make sure that you can get to New Zealand. Once you're in New Zealand, our office here is available to field any questions or queries regarding the process once you get to New Zealand. So we're here in New Zealand, we're here in the UK, in terms of that's where the office was set up originally, and we provide an end-to-end service for our clients utilising our services. Okay. Book a visa consultation with us, understand your eligibility, have all your queries addressed before making the biggest decision that you will make. So we're happy to do this. Just get in contact with us. Discuss this with you. Really important for you guys to all get information, and luckily with all the social media, information is available at the tip of your fingers. So like our Facebook page, have a look at our Twitter page, and some photos on interest. Incidentally, New Zealand Skills Demand have also got a very social active social media page, and just get as much information, because information is the key to make decisions for you. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up our presentation, and what will follow now is a Q&A session, whereby we would ask you to ask questions on the chat room, and we'll do our best to actually catch up. We will, from this webinar, we'll email you with more information and suggest tips on the next steps. What I would encourage you to do is send your CV and CBD to New Zealand Skills Demand, and again, you'll have our details. And I would encourage you to complete our Migration Associates online form. I know there's a lot to take in from the seminar. I'm glad that you're able to attend the seminar, and with a little bit of assistance and guidance, hopefully you can make that move and get that better lifestyle in New Zealand. So I think from here, we'll start off with the Q&A section. If you have to hurry and get to another appointment, or you have limited time, please do email us, or provide our email addresses in the chat room. Feel free to get in contact with us, and we can deliberate with you at a later stage. So on behalf of myself and Rachel, thank you very much for attending this webinar. This presentation now will conclude, and we'll move on to the question and answers part of the webinar. Okay, well, I hope you were able to have a look at that pre-recording, and I hope you can hear me. What we will do now is go on to our Q&A session. We will just have the microphones on, and we will then also just field any, try to answer any questions that you may want to put on the chat room. So we'll probably be here for another 5 to 10 minutes. Myself and Rachel are available to take any questions. So please feel free to ask any questions. Damon, good question. That requires a bit of a strategy. So I'll just pop my email address on the chat room. Give me a quick email, Damien, and we can go through that outside of the seminar. The webinar. It is possible, but just I need to understand your situation and to advise forward. Okay. Lawrence, partner of a student work visa. If you are eligible to apply as a partner, you will be able to work in any role with any employer, and therefore you should be able to also access healthcare and the hospitals, etc. So it would really depend on your circumstances. So hopefully that helps. Sylvia, listen, newly qualified after next summer, I think if you can get a job offer in New Zealand and get a visa, that will increase the likelihood of your husband getting a job offer in New Zealand. He'll be on the ground, which will help him a lot to get a job, and he will have a visa to work for anyone in any role. So, I think all is on you. Good luck with the job search. Get your registration done, and hopefully we'll see New Zealand. If you need any help on your visas, just get in touch with me. You've got my email address. Lawrence, it would really depend on whether or not I need to look into your circumstances a little bit more about tuition fees. If they're domestic students, yes, tuition fees will be covered. But when I'm saying tuition fees, it'll be just for primary and secondary school, maybe not for tertiary.
Hi, Claire. Okay, so do you know if central government jobs would take candidates on possible
Claire,
central visas?
yes, we've had government agencies take on overseas candidates for roles, and it's possible to apply for skilled visas with those government agencies.
Now, I've just seen the message from Dana about the links to the two job websites. Now, Seek, I've just put them up in the chat room. Seek and Trade Me are two really good jobs.
So if you haven't done so already, send your CV to Rachel, and she'll see whether or not she can help or steer you in the right direction. If you have any visa questions, send me a quick email, and we'll do as much as we can to help you or put you in the right direction. Fortune, yes, truck driving jobs are in demand in New Zealand. We did work with an agency that assisted. They no longer have that demand, but we're working on looking at getting another agency on board to help us with the trucks. So just keep in touch with us, and if that changes, we'll certainly be in touch. So my only advice is keep in touch with us, and we'll try to do what we can do.
Osama, engineering, I mean, it would really depend on what sort of engineering. Sorry, I feel like we've got a bit of crossover.
I mean, you're able to get a visa, your wife will be able to work in New Zealand. So just to be clear, everyone, if you get an essential skills work visa or a residency visa, your children and your partner should be able to get visas. Your partner should be able to get a visa to work, and the children should be able to get student visas. Osama, I mean, engineering covers a wide range. It's like if you asked me if I was a lawyer, there's family law, there's immigration law. So it would depend on what engineering you're in. And, as kind of discussed in the seminar, you may want to actually come over to New Zealand and see if you can meet New Zealand employers. Danny, I think we're in touch with you. Listen, you will get more points for jobs outside of Auckland. Okay, but we'll go through that with you. For everyone here under the skilled migrant category, there's a point system. You need to meet 160 points, and getting a job offer outside of Auckland will give you a higher point score. Okay, just bear in mind, however, Auckland is a hub where a lot of job offers are going to be given. And therefore, if you can't get a job offer outside of Auckland, we would encourage you to just get that job offer in Auckland to get your foot in the door in New Zealand, because that may lead to other options for you. JP, depending on what is your occupation? Claire, can you hear me? Okay, fantastic. JP, send your CV to us. In IT, there are some accredited employers, and New Zealand Skills in Demand could point you in the right direction. Okay. I think what we'll probably do now is wrap up this the webinar. Firstly, I wanted to say thank you for all of you attending, and I can tell you right now we've had a lot of people attend our seminars in the UK. So if you're in the UK, get along to our seminar. We've got some exciting news for our May seminars. We're going to have a trade employer who are looking to come to New Zealand to attend the seminars, and they will potentially be offering jobs there, which is fantastic. So get along to our seminars in the UK in May. For those of you outside of the UK, please continue to be in contact with us. We have a lot of people that have attended these webinars and seminars and have gone on to actually make the move with our assistance to New Zealand, and we feel that we can provide a lot of support to you. So it's been fantastic to have you on board. Technology can work good sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't help at all. So I do apologise for those who weren't able to access the video. Please just be in touch with us, and thank you very much for your time.